Okay, so getting straight into this then, I've got my Hero 12 here. Now, what it is, I've just spent an entire day doing my first video about this camera. However, I am not going to bother showing you the intro and the unboxing and all the rest of it, because that is totally out of context to what actually ends up happening with this camera, or at least my opinion of it by the end of the video. So the idea was to do an unboxing, you know, in my usual jokey style, and then go out and just do a dead simple vlog, and then come back and just do a little bit of like a summary. And it was basically my introduction to the Hero 12, and to let people know all the stuff that I was going to be doing with it and all the rest of it, and the example of my first vlog. However, I'm super disappointed with it, and that is all told in the summary end of this video, which is actually, I've just recorded it just now. Now, what it is, in the video, I end up swearing at the end of the video, and it's not swearing because like it's for effect or anything, or I'm trying to be funny. I'm genuinely angry, absolutely angry with GoPro. So yeah, if you're somebody who's easily, like, you know, offended by swearing and stuff, just avoid the end of the end summary. The last minute of the end summary, don't bother with it. And if you're somebody who's just more interested in my opinion and the end summary, there will be a chapter that you can jump straight to. So if at any point during the vlog elements, you know, you've kind of seen enough and then you want to jump straight to the end summary, do that. However, there is a section in the vlog element where I do some testing of that GoPro log function and stuff, and that's probably the thing, or one of the things actually, that's kicked me off. So you might want to see some of that stuff in the vlog. Anyway, yeah, it is what it is. Okay, it's not a super great video or anything, but there is a point to be made with it. So let me just get into it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here then is just go for my little walk routine through the park here. I've got the Hero 12 set to like completely fully automatic here, and it's on the like standard stabilization as well, so as much like out of the box as you can possibly get. So a very, very fair example of probably the way most people are going to use GoPros for doing this type of thing, you know, just walking around and doing vloggy stuff. Oh yes, and I am also in linear field of view. Now also, obviously, for this very first vlog, I'm just using the internal microphones on the Hero 12, and that's because, you know, I don't want to go rigging it out right now, just to, you know, just to get like my first feel for it. I think the thing is, with any type of camera, no matter whether it's like, you know, a Hero, whatever DJI, or like, you know, a bigger video camera, if you're going to use them for vlogging, realistically, you know, you want to get the smallest kind of setup as possible. Now, if that can include just using like the built-in internal microphones, then of course you would do that. So that's the reason why I'm trying this now with just its internal mics. Now, to be honest, the Hero 11 wasn't bad at all with the internal mics. I'm not saying it was going to compete against a decent external mic, but internally it was actually good. So I'm probably expecting this to realistically sound exactly the same as the Hero 11. So because there is no breezes going on or anything, I'm going to hazard a guess that this is probably sounding quite good. Now, on the point of the internal microphones, what it is, the GoPro has two internal microphones. Now, these are not necessarily like proper stereo, as it were. I think what they do, GoPro manufactures some type of like spatial audio out of it. And when I say spatial, I don't mean like surround, but what I think they do is to use the microphones to offset against each other and basically do a bit of cancelling to help with like certain types of recordings. It might be even useful like when it gets windy and stuff, I'm not entirely sure, but it definitely isn't just straight stereo. But nonetheless, anytime I use a camera that's got two microphones on it, whether it's stereo or some weird spatial nonsense, I will always choose the one microphone usually. Now, so far in this video, I'm not entirely sure whether I've used one mic or two mics. So what I will do now is just pop up on the screen how many mics are being used. So right now, this is how many microphones are being used so far within the video. So if I say that that was one microphone, or if I said it was one microphone, that's just because I've took one of the channels and centered it in post. Now, if that was the case, what I'm going to do now is give you an idea of what the stereo is like. So right now, this is the GoPro stereo, or basically the pickup from the two microphones. So this should give us an idea of what it's like. Now, for me personally, I don't like recording with 2 mics or stereo because, you know, your dialogue can go kind of lopsided, although GoPros or Heroes don't necessarily do that because, like I say, it's not a traditional like stereo width thing that they do. However, what I'm going to do here, whilst it is with its stereo thing on, let me just turn the camera around. So that's me now to one side of the GoPro there, and then that's me to the behind of the GoPro, and then that's me to the other side of the GoPro, and then that's me back around to the front. Now, if this were a proper stereo setup, we would definitely be identifying proper stereo imagery there. If, well, you'd probably have to have headphones on in order to get that as well, but anybody who like listens to audio knows to listen properly on either properly spaced good speakers or on headphones. But nonetheless, that will give you an idea of what this sounds like, which is stereo. Now, the thing is, if I have been singled down to the one microphone, which I probably am, this is back to what that one microphone is. Now, although this video isn't really a full-blown test of a ton of features and stuff, it's literally just the GoPro setup as most basic and as automatic as possible with, like, you know, the basic stabilizer and also in linear field of view. I'm also in 5.3K. I'm also recording at the highest bit depth, or bit rate, sorry. And as far as bit depth is concerned, I am actually in 10 bit because 10 bit's just better. So I'm going to look all cinematic and I'm going to look amazing because I'm in 10 bit. Anyway, so with this basic setup here, what I'm going to do is just kind of move around here a little bit and let's see how it's handling, like, you know, shadows and highlights and stuff. Now, the only thing is, it's quite cloudy, so the sun isn't going to be like blaring behind me. But what I'll do, I'll just kind of like move about a little bit, and for whatever kind of light we've got here, it's definitely going to give us an idea of what the GoPro's doing with all these automatic settings. As I move the camera around, I mean, even like, you know, pointing it up, you know, behind me up at the sky like that, it's definitely going to be like a lot of light up there, which should mean that it's going to be forcing itself to like do a different exposure and stuff like that. Anyways, what I will do, obviously in future videos, I'm going to start testing very specific singular aspects of the functions on this Hero 12. So that will include, like, you know, a proper, you know, exposure testing and stuff like that. But for now, this should have given you a bit of an idea as to how it's been handling stuff. In fact, give us one moment. Okay, so what I'm going to do now then is just walk under a whole bunch of trees and go into a total load of shade here. So what we're going to do here is probably see the GoPro or the Hero 12 gaining up quite a bit shortly once we get right into the thick of the trees. Now, it is definitely going to go a bit noisy and stuff. It's just bound to. Now, I'm not one of those people who's going to get like massively bent out of shape with a Hero because it goes a bit noisy when it gets a bit darker. Because as much as what I will have a go at GoPro for some of their failings with the Hero cameras and whatnot, you know, I'm not going to give anybody any stick because they've got a tiny camera that doesn't do great in low light. It would be extremely unreasonable, you know, to expect a tiny camera like this to do great in low light. I mean, as long as you can get something out of it and you can identify the shapes in the picture, I think that's realistically the most you could ask for with, like, you know, tiny censored cameras and stuff. So where I am now is definitely very, very shady. I must say very shady. I don't mean like dodgy, I mean shady as in a lack of light. Anyway, let me just go walking back this way because I was just about to walk into a massive, like, big bramble bush there, which definitely ain't the right thing to do. Hold on, let me just get past all these trees here. Anyways, amongst this blabbering that I've been doing here, it'll definitely give you an idea of what this all looks like. And obviously, when it goes into a lot of shade like this, what's going to happen here is the GoPro, the Hero, I'll use GoPro and Hero interchangeably, everybody does. And what happens when you go into those dark spaces, what will happen is the Hero is going to drop down the shutter speed so we can obviously expose up for those dark areas. Now, the problem is, as we all know, you know, GoPros like a lot of light. They like a higher shutter, and that's because the brambles got me. That's because the higher shutter with the brighter light helps with the stabilizer. So what you're definitely going to know with the GoPros, when you go into darker areas, you'll see problems with the stabilizer. You might see like a lot of micro jitters and stuff like that, or some of the weird artifacts going on. Now, although I did say that this video was essentially just going to be like me first basic vlog. Just going to try something really quickly here. I'm going to try and keep the GoPro in the exact same position here, although it will move between the takes inevitably. But what I'm going to do is flip between standard, HDR and the new log mode. So what I'm going to do is just stay quiet and try and hold the GoPro as like in the same position, as best as possible in the same position, and then just flip through those settings, and let's just see one after another. Do we see much of a huge difference? Okay, so that'll do it then for my first vlog on my new Hero 12. So what I'm going to do now is go indoors, have a quick look at this footage, and then finish the video off with a nice, simple critique. Okay, so to an end summary then, and I'm not going to try and dwell too much here. But the first thing that I'm going to have to say, if I had to sum my experience up so far with the Hero 12, it is disappointed. Now, there's a bunch of things here, right, which I'm just going to have to try and flash through, because I'm going to have to seriously do some testing with that 12 against me 11. Now, here's a bunch of things that have got me concerned immediately. One, it is not noticeably better than the Hero 11. At best, it's quite possibly maybe on par with a bunch of things. However, there are some things that are noticeably worse as far as I'm concerned. Now, as far as noise in the picture is concerned, I could see more noise in that picture than what I would normally see with a Hero 11. Now, I'm not talking about when I was going into dark spaces. I absolutely will accept noise in those, in those scenarios. However, when I was just like around, like, in the open, like fields and stuff, and like, where I was just coming, like, through some of the tree lines and what have you, there was loads of noise in the picture. Now, the thing is, there was definitely enough light there. It might have been like overcast and stuff, but it was daytime. There was loads of light. There's absolutely no need, for that, like grain and crud in the picture. And as far as I was concerned, it was really noticeable. I view back on a 32-inch monitor, so these things are quite easy to see. So immediately, there's definitely not some kind of big improvement over the 11. Not that I was expecting that anyway, because I've already made videos on how the 12 is basically just a firmware updated and software updated variant of the 11. But I was expecting it, genuinely expecting it to have been better. Anyways, a bunch of other things that I noticed immediately. Now, although that there was only meant to be a vlog, I did actually bolt on some extra bits at the end just because I was having a laugh doing the vlog. So I thought I'll do a couple of other quick shots here. Now, I went into doing the HDR on the log. That HDR is, yes, it makes the picture look different, because if it didn't, then, that'd be odd. But I'm sure I could see more ringing going on, like around like the edges of the trees and stuff like that in the distance and things like that. There was also variations once again where the noise was appearing in the picture. So that HDR there, I'm not entirely convinced, of how useful that actually is. To me, that feels just more like another GoPro color profile as opposed to something which is blending, multiple exposures and stuff. Because don't forget, when it says HDR, it is not like proper HDR or like, industry HDR, so like HDR 10 plus or something like that. This is essentially just GoPro's way of trying to get like a better balance between like shadows and highlights with a multiple exposure type thing going on. Now, I've seen other cameras do that, and it, they can do it quite well. I just don't think that this GoPro's doing that at all well. So for me, the HDR in that environment there is kind of like, yeah, you know, it does something, but I don't think it brings anything to the table. Now, I know some people out there, like, you know, GoPro fanboys and all those idiots, you know, they're probably going to go, yeah, but you need to be blah blah and blah blah and blah blah. Right? Here's the simple fact there. Right? I was out in sunlight. We should have seen marked differences there with things and whatnot. And if the only difference that people are noticing so far with that HDR is the fact that it makes the sky look blue, then yeah, what a fantastic feature. You know what I mean? So as far as I'm concerned, that's a little bit defunct. Now, here's the weird one. That log footage there looked absolutely terrible. Now, let me just explain a couple of things on that, because that's the one thing that's got me really bothered, because there's just, it's broke. As far as I'm concerned, it's broke. Right. Now, with HDR, I do appreciate, so not HDR, with log formats, I do appreciate that usually you have to kind of like shoot slightly over and stuff like that, you know, with the exposure and whatnot. However, you know, the GoPro was set to automatic there for the exposure, fully automatic. So if it needed to have had like a bit more light thrown into the equation, with it being in automatic, it should have done that itself. What it is, I'm getting really annoyed now. It should have done that itself anyway. You shouldn't have to go in there and apply some extra kind of like boost to the exposure in order for that like log system to work properly. But here's the worst of it. Did you see how blurry that footage was with the log switched on? It was absolutely ridiculous. It just looked like somebody had smeared grease across the lens. Now, I do appreciate that, like, some people think that, like, oh yeah, well, you know, when you're in post, you can sharpen things up. I'm telling you right now, that shouldn't look like that. That was just blurry. It wasn't even like it looked like lower resolution. It just looked blurry. You know, I did have a little mess with it in post just to try and sharpen it up, but, you know, nothing that I did to it looked, you know, none of it looked convincing. It just looked terrible. And I've seen footage there, you know, what that GoPro have shown and all the rest of it, and, you know, there did seem to be some kind of, like, you know, the like fundamental plus point to using the log format, as there is with other log formats, if that's what you're into. Me personally, I'm not going to get into the whole log thing. I just don't. I think it's an overblown function, and to be honest, those log functions, I said I wouldn't get into it. I won't, because I don't want to like lose me flow here, because I am quite angry, and when I get angry, I do lose it a bit. However, you know, I will do a video about why I think most log formats are just plain useless. Anyway, that log format there is absolutely useless. It's totally useless, you know. And did you see like how underexposed that the log looked? It was ridiculous. The thing is, when you look at like traditional log formats, you have to remember, log isn't the same log from one camera manufacturer to the other. What it is, it's a particular kind of, like, you know, boost and cut within the curve and stuff of the gamma that, like, each manufacturer will choose as being what they think is most appropriate. And then obviously you would either go directly, you know, fully manual within a grade and alter that yourself, or at least you would start off with a decoder LUT, say to Rec 709, to give you the start on where to go with it. And on that point as well, you know, GoPro have once again like added the function, like when they first introduced flat and stuff like that, without giving any kind of, like, you know, assistance with it. What they should have right now is a decoder LUT for GoPro Log, which you can throw into whatever NLE or editing software or finishing software that you're using. But I've not seen any. I did a good search of Google to find out if I could download, you know, a log profile for the transformation from GoPro Log to 709, and there isn't one. Do you know what I mean? So this whole thing, once again, it just sounds to me, or feels to me, like it's just another crappy bolt-on that GoPro add every now and then to something which is absolutely useless, and they don't actually go like they don't assist you any further than just saying, look, there's that function. They're not giving you any further assistance on how to use it. So as far as I'm concerned, either my particular camera is broke, or, you know, that's just what their log function looks like. It looks terrible, absolutely terrible. Overall, it just wasn't like, it wasn't a noticeably better experience than using the Hero 11. And, you know, and that's not particularly without its problems. Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to have to wind this up, right? Because I'm just dead annoyed. I really did expect... In fact, I'd already made a couple of videos about these things, and some of my buddies already knew. I've got 3 other GoPros, and the idea was that's going to be the one to settle on. Yeah, look, bottom line, I didn't expect that to completely blow the 11 out the water. All I expected from the 12 is something that the 11 could have been, right? But that's not going to happen, so get the 12. So I expected it to be at least as good as the 11, and then, you know, and a bit more. Do you know what I mean? It's so underwhelming, absolutely underwhelming. It's a very disappointing release and a very disappointing camera. Now, in all fairness, maybe I've got one that's got a problem with it. Well, I don't care. I don't care if it's just my one, because if that's the case, I've been really unlucky across like 8 GoPros, the last 8 that I've bought, because a few of them it might have been just my camera. As far as I'm concerned, GoPro really have got to start pulling their finger out and making a proper effort with these things. It's getting super annoying now. And yeah, you know, oh, look, what I'm going to do anyway, I could just rabbit on all day here, but I don't want to sound like I'm GoPro bashing, because I do enough of it, although right now I do believe that it's warranted. But anyway, bottom line, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to wait like, you know, like 2 weeks or whatever that return period is in order to like milk something out of this 12 and then send it back. No, because I wouldn't do that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a few more tests over the next couple of days or so. What it is, I've got a lot of other videos to do on my main channel. You see, I'm really behind. I'm going to batter it as much as possible within, say, three or 4 days, and I'm going to make my decision then. But right now, I want to send it back. If there's something in there that I've missed in the settings, which is so unlikely because I am very, very familiar with GoPros, if there's something that I've missed, then fair enough, like bad on me. But that hasn't been the case. I'm absolutely positive of it. So I think what I've seen there is an indication of exactly, you know, how I will be feeling like doing more stuff with it. But like I say, in all fairness, I'll give it another 3 or 4 days. I'll try and do as much with it as I can, not necessarily for YouTube, but for myself, and just see what I get up to with it. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, I'm leaving it at that anyway. I'm dead disappointed, as you can probably tell. It's another year of waste with GoPro. Honestly, we're on to number 12 here. Number friggin' 12, right? And he still can't fucking nail it. You know what I mean? How many... All right, look, bottom line, how many fucking goes do GoPro need? Seriously, how many fucking times have they got to make or attempt to make a fucking camera that absolutely blows your socks off as soon as you buy it? And it's definitely a marked improvement from the fucking one before it. Anyway, I'm getting off. I'm David Harry. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.